Good morning, everyone. I'm last. Thank you, Terry. That was a great testimonial to what we have been doing for many years, obviously. And it's great to be partnered with you and all of the dedication that you provide to your team members. It does show, and it shows in your numbers as you just talked about. What we want to do today is talk through the state of health in the Green Bay market or the region. And what we do is we look at all the participants who live in an 8-county region. It doesn't necessarily mean that they work in this area, but they do live here. So I wanted to start out with some fast facts. I found this one very interesting this year, that 20% of college freshmen enter their college career obese or overweight. But upon exiting as a senior, 40% of them are. Now, most of that is probably alcohol, right? But it is an alarming statistic because we're starting out really poorly already once we're out of college. And then, of course, we always talk about millennials, right? We talk about them a lot. And if you've heard the headlines recently, the big headline was, millennials are not ruining everything. Millennials are actually improving our divorce rate. But unfortunately, credit and financial wellness is a big piece of that. So 43% of millennials have subprime credit. A third of them have a maxed out credit card. So financial wellness, along with our mental health wellness, is really something that we do need to focus on. So as we go through this period of time, lots of information on our millennials and how we need to target them differently and how we need to help them be healthier differently. Who is Helix? Again, just a refresher for any of those that are new in the room, we serve over 600 employers nationwide. We are in a couple other countries as well. Our groups range from about 2,000 to 10,000, depending on where they're located. But we are in partnership with Bellin. As you know, we conduct over 24,000 HRAs just in this presentation today alone. We'll be talking about the 2017 data because obviously we're always looking at the prior year. Who are we looking at when we look at demographics? We're looking at about 33% male participants in the group from the employee side compared to the Helix national average of about 45%. So when we look at that, that's important. We know that males tend to have more catastrophic insurance claims, females tend to have more preventive. Females tend to take care of the male preventive claims. You're making our appointments for us. You're doing all that work that we don't do, right? So I just wanted to quickly look at that. Let's get into the numbers. So when we look at the overall score, remember we're looking at a score out of 100 total points with the Helix model. And with the 24,608 total participants this year, or in 2017, the score is 77.6. You'll see a couple boxes at the bottom. There's a low-risk box and a high-risk box. And you can see the low-risk box is heavily populated. That is exactly what we want to see. We want everything to be shifted into the blue. The national Helix average, and this is our 33rd year in business of doing wellness. Who would have thought 33 years ago that anyone even wanted to do this, much less we're voluntarily engaging. But 33 years of participants, employers working with us, the average is 76.3. So again, we'd like to believe this area with all the cheese curds and the beers and Packer games that we're the most unhealthy, but actually you are a point healthier than the national average in this area. What's more important is that 0 to 60 point category that you see on the screen. It's at the bottom of the low risk box. That 18.2% Helix national average is that of which consists in the orange and the red categories. Those are the people that are incurring the most claims. Those are the people with comorbidity issues. Those people have usually the positive nicotine levels as well. So again, if you can get below that 18.2%, you as an employer should conceivably be having less preventive claims than the average employer out there. This is excellent news. The Green Bay market is at 15.7%. Those are avoiding those heart attacks, the strokes, the fast aggressive prostate cancer that we heard of today. Thank you for that, Sean. So again, this is important work that we're doing, and the Green Bay market is actually healthier than average. We'll talk about our high risk in a little bit. It is LDL cholesterol, which is our bad cholesterol, followed by weight, and then HDL cholesterol. This might be a little bit difficult to see. One of the main reasons I put this up is this is our biomarker risk profile page. And the one thing that I really want to focus on this page is nicotine use. We had 3,090 members who tested positive for nicotine. Remember, we do test it in the blood, that cotinine derivative, and that equates to a little over 12%. The state average is 17%, and the national average is 18% with those employers who are doing wellness. So the rate of nicotine in this area is significantly lower. And again, I think that is a testimonial to a lot of the the nicotine-free workplaces that we currently have. The other one I want to point out on this page is our LDL cholesterol. Our LDL cholesterol is our bad cholesterol, comes from the trans fats that we eat, but also the stress that we have in our lives. Stress is our short-term driver of that. And when you have people in the gray category, or what they call an unreportable LDL cholesterol, that means our triglycerides were above 400. We had so much fat in our blood, we could not measure the amount of bad cholesterol that's in our body. As Terry said, those are those walking dead, right? Those are the people that need primary care provider follow-up. They need to get on a medication in most cases. It's past their lifestyle. We had 429 people out of this group that fell into that category. So again, this is where we can really save lives. I get calls frequently at Helix saying, hey, you were just out here, Michael, and you told us about our high-risk people, and someone died of a heart attack today at work. Was that one of those people? Well, obviously, due to privacy guidelines, I can't share that information, but I immediately go look up that person, and that was one of those people. So again, treatment is really important for this group. Talking about PSA, we had 65 individuals test positive for PSA. It just means they have irritation, inflammation, or they have prostate cancer. But they do have one of those three things going on. And what we're looking for is that fast, aggressive growing kind, because that is the kind that will kill. And so we want to catch that as early as possible and get it treated. As Terry talked about, hemoglobin A1Cs are becoming very popular in wellness programs today. It is the gold standard, the ultimate test of whether you are pre-diabetic or diabetic. So many employers are starting to add this into the program as well. So let's review our low risk factors again. Blood pressure is now the lowest risk factor. It was not last year, it was second, but it is now the lowest risk factor in the Green Bay market. That means we are identifying blood pressure, we're getting it treated, whether it's with medication or lifestyle, we're getting it treated. Most of you know the new blood pressure guidelines were released last year right before Christmas. Helix is adopting those new guidelines 1/1 of 2019, so it's coming up shortly. We gave everybody ample notice to get their blood pressure under those new guidelines, which are now 119/79. Our previous model was 130/80. People are at work, they're stressed. We used to be able to give them some leeway, but primary care providers today want it to be at that 119/79. Total cholesterol is number 2, followed by glucose. So again, diabetes is one of our lowest issues in this market. And we know that that's not true nationwide. When we look at the high and the extreme risk category, the orange and the red categories, 15.7% of the total population fell in those two comorbidity categories, and 18.2 is that national number. Now, it was 16.8 last year, so we're 1.1% down from where we were last year in this market, which means we continue to shift people to the left, continue to shift people to that 86 to 100 scoring category. Cohort members, this is really where the financial piece comes into play. Our cohort reports, I think, are the most important pieces of what we look at each year. And when we look at your cohort report in this area, they are several points healthier than the average, and we'll look at that in just a second. So high-risk factors, bad cholesterol, as I talked about, is number 1, LDL, followed by weight, and then followed by total cholesterol. Again, our new participants are more unhealthy than the participants that are already engaged in wellness. That makes sense, right? We know that, or at least we preach, that if you have a wellness program in place for 10 years, those people should be healthier than the ones that are just coming out of college, or perhaps coming from another company that does not do wellness. This is a really important factor as more employers have jumped on the wellness stage. If you are currently hiring employees away from another employer who has wellness, they will be healthier than your college graduates or than our millennial population is. Our millennial population has been sedentary. Again, diabetes is a big issue for them. And so it's actually better to be hiring people who are coming from other companies. And now 85 to 90% of employers do some sort of wellness program. So we are seeing this over and over and over in the statistics. Obesity, again, does remain a major factor. Again, our diabetes is there, but the blood pressure or the blood glucose is improving. And then we talked about those unreportable LDLs. This is the national average of our 600 employers that we work with nationwide. That green line from left to right is the national average, and then the yellow cone is this year for the Green Bay market. Blue cone is last year. So you can see that if all of your yellow cones fall below that line, you are doing better than average. And in most cases, that is the case. It's either right at or a little bit below. The only one is LDL cholesterol, which is our number one risk in this area, is still significantly worse than average, but did improve upon last year. Okay, let's talk about that cohort report. So 3,674 participants repeated the process for all 8 years in the Green Bay market. Their average age is 50.3. We talked about this last year. It is an aged group. 50.3 in the wellness world is considered old when we're looking at risk, from a risk perspective. It's not old in real life, but it is considered older. Average score, 80, I'm 50 this year. I'm turning 51 almost. 50.3 is that average age, but 80.6 is their score compared to a mid-70, 76 for a national average of Helix. So this is where it proves wellness works for these people. Again, they are significantly older, have a significantly healthier score. What happens when we get more people, less time? Well, these people are 46 years old only. Their average score is 77.7. So again, this is based off of true data that is not skewed by any scoring table changes. This is an important number for this market. They're doing incredibly well. Cholesterol and blood pressure numbers have improved dramatically. Nicotine continues to decrease. We know that it's decreasing in our regular population. We know that it is of epidemic level with our teenagers right now. If you've heard, the FDA has recently come out and has targeted the manufacturers of the vaping devices to try and change their marketing campaign to not target it toward those teenagers, because we have teenagers picking up vaping right now at an alarming levels. With our health assessment really brings in the data we need to build your programs. We want to make sure that we're not just looking at metrics, we're looking at a whole host of things when we put a wellness program together. And I pulled a couple of them out of our self-reported, and I think one of the more important ones is our primary care provider. How many people have them, and how many have done their annual physical in the last 12 months outside of their wellness exam? 81.9% of people have one. That's an incredible number for this area. But 66.1, which is significantly higher than the national average, actually did their annual physical. So that is exactly what we're looking to achieve. We also ask things like worksite productivity, sleep. We know that sleep is a big issue in our country today. For those of you that sleep less than 6 hours a day, you are operating during the day with your mental impairment and judgment as if you've had 2 alcoholic beverages. So a lot of us are working drunk during the day. So best practice. Anybody in the room attend the National Wellness Conference this year in San Diego? Oh, how sad. I did. And we talk about best practices, and WellCoA was mentioned on a previous slide, but some of the best practices that are coming out of WellCoA and will be over the next 7 years, they have a 7-year initiative on redefining their benchmarks. And their benchmarks talk a lot about organizational culture. Remember, organizational culture does not mean that you just have C-level buy-in. You want your organizational culture to trickle all the way down to your supervisors and your managers who actually supervise the people that need the wellness most. So upon hiring and upon training, make sure that you're instilling in them that this is part of their function, it's part of their job. Some of them will not believe in wellness. Some of them won't want to put a smile on their face and support the wellness program. But try to tap into what they are passionate about, even if it's a small part of that, and get them to support the program, because you will not have a successful wellness program unless you get their buy-in and their support. I have multiple examples of companies who have had this problem, especially in the retail market, where we'll have a couple stores that just do not perform, and it's simply because of that store manager. And when we get that turned around, the numbers turn around as well. Using nudges instead of ultimatums. We talked a little bit about outcomes-based wellness programs. The trend is going to be to move that in a little bit of a softer direction and make it more meaningful and impactful for the participants. We've talked last year about population health management. It's a big topic, and we know that that's important. Financial wellness, integrated coaching in DM, CM. But one of the big things we talked about at the national conference this year was social determinants. So with our social determinants, if you're not familiar with what that is, it's meeting the people where they actually live. What is your zip code? What resources do you have outside of your door? I could live in the middle of Milwaukee and I have a Whole Foods right next door that I can go grab a salad for lunch, or I can grab healthy fruits and vegetables at any time that I wish. But I may not be able to go outside my door at night after dark and walk because it might be of danger. So what we're looking at is building a database of what's available. What is our educational opportunities available in our area? All of that is impacting how successful we can be in our wellness program. Because if I, as a wellness coach, talk to a participant and tell them they need to do all this stuff, but they don't have the financial means or they don't have the resources to tap into those, I'm not going to be able to help that person. So we really need to take this to another level. And again, a big part of that is, let's not forget that human that is behind that number. We talk about numbers a lot out of that 100-point score, but we have to remember that there's a human behind that as well, and it's a journey for all of us. Thank you very much. I will be available as well outside, so if you have any questions or you want to talk through any of these numbers, I'd be happy to do that.